Are you worried that ransomware threat actors might be targeting your backup server? If you are, you're listening to the right episode of the Backup Wrap Up. If you're not worried about that, then you're really listening to the right episode. We'll explore why your backup system is the number one target for cybercriminals and how you can protect it from their attacks. From immutable storage to network segmentation, we'll cover essential strategies and actionable tips for fortifying your last line of defense. If your backups aren't protected from ransomware, then what is even the point? If you're not familiar with me, I'm W. Curtis Preston, aka Mr. Backup. And I've been interested in, obsessed with, whatever you want to call it, backup and recovery, disaster recovery for over 30 years. Ever since I had to tell my boss that we lost data and I had no backup. I don't want that to happen again to me. I don't want that to happen to you. And that's why we do this show. Here we turn unappreciated backup admins into cyber recovery heroes. This is the Backup Wrap Up. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, W. Curtis Preston, aka Mr. Backup, and I have with me my SEO sympathizer, Prasanna Malaiyandi. How's it going, Prasanna?
I'm doing well, Curtis. How are you doing? Do you just have all these random keywords swimming in your head right now?
I do. I've just, for those that are wondering what we're talking about search engine optimization, and I really I have dived deep into that world. I've always been aware of the world, but I've never really been responsible for that world. And I am now responsible for SEO, and I am just diving deep into that world. And for those of you that are familiar with this tool called SEMrush, great tool. And I've just been living keywords and all of that.
It's about, how do search engines work? What are the things they look for? What are things you should make sure that you are doing in your content to make sure that it is found by search engines, and then they can figure out how to classify and all the rest.
Yeah. And all this stuff's public information. What are people searching on? What are people searching on when they go to your site? What are people searching on when they go to your competitor sites? All of this stuff is all public information, and tools like SEMrush help you collect all that information and then help you target the right keywords. But it is definitely a new world for me. It is just filled with lots of little phrases running around, and it helps you. It helps you decide in a world of limited resources. It helps you decide what you're going to spend your resources on, etc. Right. So I want to talk about, we've been starting to talk about ransomware again, starting to talk about cybersecurity. And one of the things when we talk about ransomware, like one of the first things that I want to talk about is your backup server. In that what's that?
I'm laughing because most people, when they think about ransomware, if you're an IT professional, right, you're probably thinking, how do I protect my production systems from ransomware? Right. And I know we talked about that in the last episode, right? That, a little bit about ransomware. But this is sort of, I think, important because, like we talked about in the previous episode, backups are what you need in order to recover from ransomware and avoid paying the ransom.
Yeah, it's sort of like, it's like a foundational thing, right? It's like before you go and do all of this stuff, make sure that you have your backups covered, because you're going to need your backups if something happens over there, right?
Yeah. So, and if you aren't backing up data, make sure you should probably start backing that data up.
If you're not backing up your data, then now would be the time to start. It's never too late, to start backing. Well, it could be too late if you get ransomware.
It's like a tree. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today.
Yes, exactly. So the the first thing, and I think the most important thing for people to understand regarding their backup system, whether it's a backup server, whether it's a backup service, is that that backup system is the number one target for a ransomware attack. Why do I say that?
Well, because, like I previously mentioned, it has all your data. It allows you to restore. It makes it so you don't have to pay the ransom to the people who have your data held hostage.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and I just wanted to chime in. I don't think that was the case maybe like 2 years ago, right?
No,
The
no, it wasn't.
ransomware actors were not going after backup servers.
No, now they 100% are, right? And the thing to think about, and by the way, you listed the first reason why
Yeah,
the
but it's
backup
not the second.
system
Yeah.
is a target. The second reason is that the when we look at a typical ransomware attack now, a significant portion, I believe it's over 50%, a significant portion of ransomware attacks are doing exfiltration, right? They're doing the basically a two-stage, a double extortionware, right? So you can have your data back if you give us $1 million, or we won't give the world all of your data if you give us $1 million, right?
Or your
And
sensitive data.
yeah, and they did that. I think that they've gone to this second style of malware for a really good reason. Do you know what that might be? Why did they start stealing the data and holding it for ransom that way?
Because you're more likely to pay for it because you had backups to recover from. And so if they
Yeah,
could recover your data, if you didn't have that data, you couldn't sort of force them into that stage of being like, hey, pay up.
yeah. So a lot of people started getting wise to having a proper backup and recovery system, and so they stopped paying the ransom. And they're like, okay, well, we'll fix this. Now, why is that relevant to what we're talking about today? And that is that you need to understand that your backup system is a gold mine, right?
Mhm.
Your backup system has all of the data that a bad actor would want to get at and to pull out in order to do an extortion type attack because they've got access to your data. And the
Yeah.
other thing is that the backup system is specifically designed to give other people data,
Yep.
right? It's that
Yep.
you can use the backup system if you can gain control of it. You can literally use the backup system to help exfiltrate data.
Yeah. The other thing also is, I think you were mentioning this, is all your eggs are in one basket with the backup system, right? You as an attacker don't have to go try to compromise 20 different or 40 different applications in the
Right.
environment. If you hit the backup system, you pretty much have access to all the data that's ever been backed up, which hopefully, if you're doing backup properly and have been listening to this podcast, right, all your data is being backed up to your backup system.
Yeah. So I
It's a
hope
double-edged sword.
what's that?
It's a double-edged sword.
It is a double-edged sword. Yeah, I used to joke about. I used to say, be really nice to your backup person because not only do they have all the backups of all your data, they also have the root password and the administrator password to all your servers, right? So they could go out and wipe out all the data and then wipe out all the backups of all the data, right?
Mhm.
But that also means, from a backup system perspective, you have both this amazing tool that can be used to bring your system back online if you um, you know have a ransomware attack, but then also you have this tool that can be used to make the ransomware attack worse.
It reminds me, there is a tool that is now being used by a lot of these ransomware attackers. I think we talked about this on the last episode, CrowdStrike. And that was initially intended to help people who were red teaming to identify vulnerabilities in their environment. And then it got leaked out to bad actors. And now they use those exact same tools in
Yeah,
order to cause these issues. Right. And so, as you were talking about the backup systems, that's exactly what I was thinking too.
yeah, exactly. So just think about the fact that your backup system has the ability to transfer any data that it backed up to anywhere. Generally speaking, any decent modern backup system has the ability to restore anything to anywhere. And so you're right that you don't have to go compromise the Oracle system and then compromise the SQL Server system and then compromise the, all these different systems. You have this one place where you can go and say, oh, I don't need to compromise Salesforce. I'm just going to, restore the latest backup of Salesforce to this file. It's just that the location of that file is a place that I can control and then start exfiltrating the data out. And it would even, if you fired off that restore, if you have some sort of system in your environment that's watching for bad things going on, it might not notice that this is bad because it's coming from a known system and it's doing a known function, which is restore.
And it's also hard because unlike other systems where you can look for anomalous behaviors and start tracking, restores happen randomly, right? It's not always the same data. It's not always going to the same servers.
Right.
It's really ad hoc. And so I think that becomes very difficult to sort of predict.
Look at you throwing the Latin around.
I try.
Better ad hoc than ad hominem. I mean, no, there's no good language like a dead language. Anyway, so that's actually a really good point, that restores are the anomaly, right? That people don't generally do restores. And so when they do them, they appear out of normal. And so if you had some sort of anomaly detection system, it would probably on a regular basis alert to the fact that someone was doing a restore, and then they would shut down the alert because of what we're just talking about.
Yeah, bad alerts lead to people ignoring them.
Yeah,
it's like your seatbelt chimes in cars.
Exactly. So if our backup system is a target, both from so they want to shut it down so that it's not able to restore data, and then they also want to use it to steal the data. Let me ask you a question. If we go back in time, there was a time that the backup data wasn't so easily reached, right?
Yep.
The backup data was sitting on tapes.
Yep.
Right now, the majority, I think, of backup data is sitting on disk. But back then, the majority of data was sitting on tape. From a data security standpoint, what's the difference between data sitting on disk and data sitting on tape?
Well, on tape, it's not easily accessible, like easily available, right? Because you have to take the tape, put it in a reader, right, or a tape drive, right, and then access the data. And so you basically pull it out, or it's sitting in on a shelf somewhere, right, or in a box. And so it's not easily available. And so you can't just go and be like, hey, I'm going to go pull the data off the tape easily, read the data for exfiltration, or I'm just going to go delete the data because it's not easily accessible.
Even if let's just say I wanted to do damage to your backup system, right? And you had tape, I would need some really specialized tools, because even if you had all the data sitting in a tape library, you can't easily go and destroy the data on those tapes, because, like you said, you have to bring them in one at a time, put them in a tape drive. And it's not easy to get the backup system to do this for you, because, all you would need to do is put 1 byte on each tape. You don't have to erase the rest of the tape. Everything. You just literally have to put 1 byte on each tape, because it would put an end of tape marker, and then you wouldn't be able to read past that. But getting a backup system to do that, to basically override its known backups, would be really, really hard. So you would need to get very specialized software to be able to control that robotic tape library.
I was just going to ask if people were attacking the tape libraries.
Yeah. That software does exist. It's like open source, and it's not easy to get, but you could. But I'm just saying it's much more specialized. When we look at disk backups, and when I say disk backup, I mean just literally like file system, right?
Yeah.
It's literally just there. How easy is it for me to delete or encrypt the backup sitting on a E drive?
Yeah, so simple. I going back to the tape, I think for tape drives though, in addition to the robot issue, there's also if you did want to attack a company, you were probably physically breaking into the building and running out with the tapes, right?
Mm,
So
yep.
it was more effort
Right.
and more risk as well.
Yeah. And while, I mean, we can talk and go back and forth on tape. I'm a fan of tape, but we stopped using
Are you
tape.
still a fan of tape?
So I don't want to talk about that right now. I'm currently going through a very interesting world with tape right now. We'll come back to that. We'll talk about that story. I'm still a fan of tape, but this experience that I've been through over the past several weeks has reminded me of, yes, how difficult tape can be when we use it, in the way that we want to use it for backups.
Yeah.
And so most everybody went to disk and as their primary target for backups, and they might be using tape as a an air gap. And if they do, I applaud them.
Yeah.
But if the backups are just sitting there on disk, then they are really, really, really vulnerable. If they are
Yep.
sitting there just available as files on a file system, especially on a Windows server, without anything special, that is probably the most vulnerable backup that there is.
Yep. And I think this is why, if we roll back in time, right, that's why many vendors sort of moved away from giving direct NFS or SMB access to the backup servers and have their own proprietary protocol that doesn't give sort of free access to the file system.
Yeah. So, do you have some examples for
Well,
that?
I'm thinking of EMC's data domain boost protocol, right? That allows you to transfer the data. You could also think about VTL, iSCSI potentially.
Yeah. Veeam has a Veeam data transport. I forgot the name of it, but Veeam has that for pretty much any system that will interact with it or that will support it. And
Yeah.
so what that does is it allows you to transfer the backups onto a disk system and have those backups not show up as files on the backup
Local.
server. That's what we want
Yeah.
to do, right?
Yeah.
So let's go through a list of things that we think that backup people should be doing.
Oh,
So now hopefully we scared the bejesus out of them, right? Your backup system's under attack. If your files are sitting there in files directly accessible via a file system, they're easily attacked. Hopefully we've scared you. So let's just talk about what they should be doing to protect those backup systems from what we're worried about.
yeah. So I guess then there's two ways, and I'm trying to figure out which one is probably your favorite, Curtis. I'm trying to figure out which one to start with, but I guess the first I would start with was ensuring that your backup system has immutability.
Yeah, that we could do these in any order, but yeah, we'll start with that
Yeah.
one. That wasn't where I was going to go, but we'll start with this one first. Yes, right. Make sure that at least one copy of your backups is stored in an immutable format. And when I say immutable, I mean so there's good, better, best, right? Or yeah,
Yeah.
there's really bad. Really bad is not immutable at all, sitting on a Windows file system or a file system that's pretending to be a Windows file system like an NFS or SMB share. And if I could just go and just delete all those files or encrypt all those files, that's bad,
Game over.
right?
Yep.
Better than that would be something like Veeam's. They call it. They don't call it the immutable repository. They call it like the hardened Linux
Yeah.
repository. This is better in that it appears as an immutable file system from Windows. It's not as good as I would like it to be in that it if you have root, you can wipe away the immutable, right?
Yep.
I've been playing with a couple of new Synology boxes in the last couple of days, and they have an immutability feature there as well It
Mhm.
literally is just a checkbox, and they call it a worm feature, and that sounds great. But what I know from what I know of Synology, if I had the root password, I'm sure I could probably wipe that data away as well, right?
Yeah.
So that's better. What would be best?
So best would be the storage array itself having a feature that doesn't allow the data to be gone unless you basically destroy whatever the holding account is. So if I think about AWS and S3, they
Right.
offer object lock in, I think it's their governance mode. I don't remember if it's compliance or the governance mode. I believe it's a governance mode that basically says if you want to actually delete the data that you had stored and protected with this feature, then you have to delete your account.
Yeah, exactly. There are also on premises, like high end worm based disk systems. OOTB. It's
Would
OOTBI, right? Which is object oriented. It's an acronym. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's it's OOTBI, object oriented. The TBI stands for something, but this is it's object oriented, but it's also true worm in that the only way you're going to delete that data is to physically damage the system.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are other tools that are like that as well. So that, yeah, so that, yeah, I don't mind this being the first thing. So
Yeah.
we'll say that is the first thing that we want to do is make sure that no matter what happens to the backup system, there's at least one copy of the data that can't be damaged. My dream would be that you have an on-prem copy that is immutable, like one of the ones we've talked
Yep.
about, and then you have a cloud copy that is, I would say, even more immutable, or it's immutable in a different way.
Would you say a tape copy is?
I would absolutely say a tape copy is immutable, right? It's just a lot of people don't have the resources to make that, right?
Yeah.
I think tape copies are great. The challenge is just in making that, and then and a tape copy, by the way, is again true immutability in that even if you have root, you can't modify that data.
Yeah.
The only way to modify it is to with a hammer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The So we talked about the immutability feature. The second, and again, all of these are aimed at segregating the backup system as much as possible from the production system. So the next thing that I would talk about is not using Active Directory or anything like Active Directory to log into that backup system. You're like, what? Yes, that's what I'm saying. I want local username and password on all your backup systems. I'm not even a fan. There is LAPS, right? Local administrator password system, which is built into Active Directory. I don't care, right? I don't even want that. I want a local, completely outside of Active Directory password system. I would personally use like a third-party password manager as a way to store these super critical passwords. And that way that if Active Directory is compromised, you won't compromise your backup system.
What about other SSO systems? Would you recommend not using those either?
Again, not for both primary and backup. So like Okta, great tool, but not perfect. We've covered Okta
Yeah.
on this show. Again, it's not no one tool is perfect. It's again about segregating the backup system in a way that if the primary is compromised, the backup won't also be compromised.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm including Okta. I'm including anything that's going to span both the primary and the backup. And so that would be from a login perspective. Now let's talk about the things that we can and must do in order to secure the backup system itself. You want to go through some of that?
Well, I don't know if this falls under this category, but I know just one of the things that ransomware actors do is okay, they try to go delete your backups. We've talked about immutable backups, so they can't delete it, right? They try to access the system itself. We talked about using separate individual local passwords, but let's just say they access your system itself.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're going through, and one of the things that they would want to do is sort of stop backups from happening.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so anytime you have sort of policies being changed, retentions being changed, you want to make sure that it's not just one person who is doing this, that there
Right.
is sort of a confirmation, or four eyes is how it's sometimes referred to as,
Yeah.
in order to confirm that, yes, this is a valid operation that someone is doing, have someone else confirm it to make sure before actually applying it to the system.
I personally find the term four eyes a little offensive.
Considering, do you consider yourself four eyes?
I'm four-eyed. So no, I don't. It is funny though, because it is used as a way to make fun of people with glasses.
It's like the two nuclear submarine key ones
I
that you
get
always
it.
see,
I
right?
get it. I get it. Yeah. Yeah. So we can. Yeah. So good reporting in the backup system. So again, further segregation. So I would talk about things like role-based administration within the backup system. Don't have one person be all powerful. Segregate those duties as much as you can. Also, we need to talk about patch management, right?
Oh yeah.
And what about, I think, my opinion here. I think that the backup system should be the first in line to receive new patches. What do you think about that?
Yeah, especially when it comes to critical vulnerabilities and the importance of that data there and protecting you from these situations. Yeah. I
Okay.
think it becomes difficult though for patch management for backup systems, just because you're not just patching one system in the case of backups, right? If you have to go patch an agent that's running on some other application server, how do you coordinate with that team to make sure you're not bringing down the production application if during the time that you have to do that patch, right? And so
Yeah,
it becomes so complicated.
I think a decent backup system should be able to update its own agent
Yeah.
running remotely. If it doesn't, then you might want to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Mainly, what we're talking about is updating the media servers and the master servers, or whatever
Yeah.
they're calling them these days. The next thing I would talk about is about shutting down services that are
Not needed.
typical attack points
Yeah.
for a cyber attack. What do you
RDP.
RDP? You know what some people call RDP, or
What?
that they say RDP stands for? It's
Hmm.
the ransomware deployment protocol.
Yeah, no, because I'm hoping with many of these systems that they are fairly locked down. And this is where I think sort of having a virtual machine encompass everything gives you more protection. Like if a backup vendor said, hey, here's a virtual machine that's your master server, go deploy it, or your backup server, go
Right,
deploy it, they can at least deal with securing and locking everything down.
right,
Versus if you are installing a piece of software on an existing server, you're now responsible for making sure that all the components are locked down. And you may not understand the vulnerabilities of both the server side and the application side. And so it becomes more complicated. And in the ideal world, and I can see the benefit of this, and there's no biases here, right? But if you go towards like a SaaS model, you don't even have to worry about that,
right, right.
at least when it
Yeah,
comes to the backup server, right?
that is probably one of the biggest advantages of the SaaS backup model, is that a lot of this security minded aspect,
Yeah.
it's automatically dealt with on your behalf by the backup vendor, and you don't have to worry about it. But if you're managing your own backup servers, then you have to do this. You have to do the patch management. You have to shut down non-essential tools. By the way, I would say that in the case of RDP, like you said, if you do have VMware, you can use VMware as your RDP
Yeah.
method, right? But also if you're using VMware or something like it, um, then also VMware is a new attack vector, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have Melissa on here to talk about VMware and how VMware was being used as an attack vector. So just that might be another area where you consider segregating a separate VMware infrastructure setup just for the backup world.
Yeah.
Again, segregating it as much as possible.
And I know we're talking about segregating. One thing we didn't really cover, Curtis, which
Mhm.
I'd be curious to get your thoughts on, is I know back in the day, people would talk about network segmentation, where you'd have your backup network for data, right?
Hmm.
And the communications, you'd have your management network, which was separate,
Hmm.
right? I think that still holds true and is probably even more important today
Yeah.
than it was back then.
Yeah, agreed. That's another thing that you can do is put your backup systems on their own separate management network, right? Again, making it harder for again, making it harder, to basically jump from another compromised system onto this system in order to compromise it, right?
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to say it, but we're going to say that. Please don't use default passwords. And again, you use complex passwords and use some sort of password management system so that you don't have to remember them and you don't put them on sticky notes and things like
Yeah.
that, right? And once you've got everything set up and it's running the way you want, put some kind of monitoring in there. Make sure that you have, again, we talked about how restores are an anomaly. They should fire off. Just make sure that you are aware of any restores that are happening. Whoever it is that is responsible for restores should get notified every time a restore kicks off. And if a restore is kicking off and they don't know why, this is a problem,
Yeah.
right? And I really like the idea of restores being an anomaly, and so make sure that you're firing that off. The same is true for changes, and you mentioned this already, but changes to policies and retention, especially retention policies, because one of the ways to get rid of a bunch of data is to just go in and set retention to 0,
Yeah.
right?
And
And then if
we
it's disk-based backups, it'll go and delete it.
Yeah. And we've talked also about, even if they reduce it down to, say, 1 day, sometimes ransomware actors are in your systems for weeks or longer. And
Right,
so they don't have to worry for those old backups to just start rolling off because they're in there long enough. They've set it down. You may not have noticed that the retention
right,
period failed or
right.
changed, and now you don't have any backups.
Yeah. So put some triggers on there to make sure that you are notified when there's any, or maybe you set it in such a way that that is a role that is only accessed by this one user, and that when anyone logs into that one user, it sets off all kinds of alarms,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that you know when that's happening. I think we've covered the ways that we can protect our backups from ransomware. What do you think?
Yeah, no, this was a good list. And I know we've talked about some of this in the past, but yeah, just sort of boiling it all down and being like, hey, here are the important ones, I think this was a good episode.
Yeah, number one thing is to just understand just how big of a risk your backup system is in, and then protect from that risk, because you are, as I often like to say, you are Helm's Deep. For those of you that get the Lord of the Rings reference, make sure that you're protecting it against all odds. To pull out another phrase. Thanks for chatting, Prasanna.
No, this was fun, Curtis. And yeah, yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Well, thanks for everybody else for listening, and be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. And that is a wrap. The Backup Wrap-Up is written, recorded, and produced by me, W. Curtis Preston. If you need backup or DR consulting, content generation, or expert witness work, check out backupcentral.com. You can also find links for my O'Reilly books on the same website. Remember, this is an independent podcast, and any opinions that you hear are those of the speaker and not necessarily an employer. Thanks for listening.